Hello, it's Amanda here from Suddenly Autistic, and this is the second in a two-part video series on the most disabling part of autism for me since I found out and became more aware of what it is that's going on, I suppose. So I'm doing a bit of a deep dive into that. In the first video, I was talking about the name it to tame it type of analogy, and talking about my monotropic mindset of being both a sort of superpower and the most disabling aspect of my autism, and then what autism means for me and how those two things intersect. In this video, I want to go a little bit deeper into what goes on, or the patterns that I'm unveiling, I suppose, around that. For me, inside of, what goes on for me. So when an intrusion happens, what happens next, and how does that manifest? The reason I want to do this is because I've been burnt out a lot. I've been sort of performing below my capacity a lot. I've been tired a lot. And I believe that these things are down to this combination of monotropic mindset and the autism coming together and triggered by intrusion. Today I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive inside my head, inside what's happening. And like I said, it's helped me. Maybe it will help you or somebody you know, or help you understand somebody else that you know. Basically, if I take the sort of premise that I'm doing something that I'm happy with, I'm in my zone, I'm quite content and things are flowing, and then an interruption happens or an intrusion happens. It doesn't really matter what it is. But there's a process that I've noticed that I go through, and I've split this down into mind, time and body. So mind, time and body. Split it that way for now because it seems that those three things seem to be quite important to me. So what's going on in my mind when I have an intrusion, what's going on with my relationship to time when I have an intrusion, and what's going on then, or what's manifesting through my body. I have then sort of mapped three phases that I'd go through. So my mind, my relationship to time, and my body will go through three phases once an intrusion has happened. The first phase is usually freeze. The second phase would be plan, which is maybe where I'd manifest my overthinking or immersion behaviour, and I'll go into that more in a minute. And the third phase would be act. Now, the freeze, plan and act don't have time, like nothing here has fixed time frames around it, so I can do those three things in a nanosecond almost, or I can take weeks to progress through the freeze, plan and act. And in some cases, as with, I'm sure, neurotypical people, I have to keep going through the plan and the act. And in that case, it might become a bit of like an experiment where I'm planning something, testing it out. It didn't work. Let's go back to the drawing board, that kind of thing. This, that in itself is I'm sure, a fairly normal, and I'm using the word normal in a respectful way of, typical, I guess, is what I'm meaning. So planning and then acting when you're intruded upon, or when someone demands something of you, is perfectly reasonable for anyone. The bit that seems to be the difficult phase for me is the freeze. So it is perhaps easier to understand that not everybody, or the majority of people, wouldn't go into a kind of, you've got your fight, flight and freeze. For me, it tends to be a dominance into freezing. Possibly, I think, because a lot of these intrusions are just day-to-day things. They're neither a massive threat that I need to fight or run away from. They're more something that I've got to work through and endure, if you like. So I would imagine that I don't know, but I would imagine that this is where a lot of the disability comes in, because for me, the freeze response comes to almost everything. So, do I need to go to the bathroom? Freeze. Well, and then I've got to work out, what am I going to do? There's not, I guess the way I would describe it to the average person is that it's kind of like a lack of instinct or flow around the normal ebb and flow of the day. So with that in mind, I will dig down a little bit deeper into the sort of the map that I've been drawing out. And it's not really a drawing at the moment, it's literally just words, so I can't show you a fancy thing or put something up on the screen, although I might. So generally what happens is when an intrusion comes in, and this is especially true when it's an intrusion, say like a phone call or an unexpected interpersonal contact, you know, like if you see someone, you know, in the street or out of context, that kind of thing. So the first thing I do is generally do this bit of a freeze or almost like a pause. You kind of like your body goes into don't know what to do next. My mind slows down, so all of the chatter and the momentum that I had in my mind tends to slow down, to stop. And I imagine what that's doing is it's responding to the overwhelm of the interruption or the intrusion, and it's going into a sort of self-preservation mode. So my mind is preserving myself by slowing down and protecting myself so that I don't rush into anything. So I'm trying really to create space in that moment. So an intrusion comes in, my mind slows down, because I'm in a state of freeze, and it's actually creating some kind of space, protecting myself and protecting me from overwhelm, taking in too much detail at one time. In terms of my relationship to time, this can make me a little bit disorientated and scattered, and I can lose my thread of what I was doing. So when an intrusion happens and my mind's slowing down and I'm freezing a bit, trying to process what's going on and how I'm going to go, what's going to happen next, I can literally have my to-do list, my order, my place in the day upended, really, and I have to go and pick that up and find that again. In terms of my body can also shut down. I can start to feel numb, congested, and maybe even foggy. It's almost like all of the plans and ideas, and it's literally like I'm a truck on a railroad. You know those railroad trucks that just go along, and that someone came along and tipped it off the track. It's not only tipped over and its contents have spilled, it's now got to really get some help to get it refilled and back on the track. So that's kind of how it feels. So the next bit is planning. So once I've processed the freeze, if you like, and processed the intrusion and put it into some kind of category of what I can do and what I'm capable of achieving at that moment and how I can interact, then I'll go into planning stage. And this sort of seamlessly comes in. So planning in terms of my mind, this generally goes into immersion. It could be, it could also be thought of as sort of like overthinking or whatever. So it's an analytical mode. So if something intrudes on me in my little island of one with my monotropic mindset, as soon as I've woken up from my freeze and I've de-thawed myself and I'm starting to act, I'm going to get immersed in what's going on. This may look like, or this may manifest as me being extremely attentive to the conversation that's happening, to the interaction with the other person, asking questions or just absorbing it or whatever, you know, really listening to what's said and also what's not said, you know, that perceptive reality. It might be that I have to process what I've just been frozen about, so I need to immerse myself, do some research and thinking and planning, or it could be I just need some time for my mind to I might do some sort of thinking in order to just plan out the information and deconstruct and reconstruct what's happened so that I can make sense of it. Being autistic for me really is having a lack of intuition. I don't have that instinctual processing capacity. Everything has to be analysed and intentionally decided upon. So nothing is taken for granted. And I actually think that's both a strength and a weakness. It can be quite disabling because it takes a lot of energy and time, and it usually means that I'm processing things on a slower time frame than other people. But it actually also means that when I do process things, I'm usually a lot more accurate than maybe somebody who's gone with a gut instinct or responded to what they think's happened as opposed to what's actually going on. So in terms of time, when I'm in my planning stage, this is where I can get quite down on myself and have a lot of judgment. I'm no genius, but I'm definitely quite smart. But things do take me a long while to understand. I have to go through this intentional, long-winded, sometimes takes a long time process. So that can be where the judgment comes in, and that can then be where the mental health is less good, I suppose, or is not so good that way. In terms of my body, when I'm in planning stage, my body is really trying to go through a number of different things. So I am preparing myself for endurance to get through this. You know, it might take me some time. There might be a lot of effort coming to understand what's going on. I'm trying to establish a rhythm so that I can get myself back into that happy zone again. I'm trying to reach for some comfort to help me in whatever way, if I've got an arduous task ahead of me, to process whatever intrusion it was, whatever I need to do to get through this. I might need a lot of rest, I might not. I might be hyper active at that time, that sort of thing. So the body can be going through quite a lot of different things, and it's generally quite active. So rather than it being in the first stage where it was shut down, it can be very, very intensely active at that point, and that can be quite exhausting. And that's before we've even acted. So this whole thought process can be quite tiring. So then the last stage is act, mind, body, time. So when I'm acting, my time is in reality. So I'm back with the program in terms of time, and I'm very time focused. So if I make an appointment, unless I forget, and I do forget appointments a lot, but if I remember an appointment, I'll be there bang on time, usually a minute before, occasionally 1 or 2 minutes after, but definitely around the time that you said. That's what you said, that's when I'll be there. I'm very good at keeping time. So I'm very much on that. In terms of my mind is going to act out the plan in a step-by-step way. And this is why, for me, it can be very difficult to work with other people who maybe have a different plan or a different concept or idea of what the actions should be and which order they should be taken in. So in terms of my body, absolutely, by the time I act, I want to get my body into rhythm and flow. These are the really important things. That's really what I'm seeking out and searching for. And some days I completely, like my mind, my relationship to time and my body are not always at the same stage at the same time. So that can also be an extra disabling factor. If your mind's frozen but your body's needing movement, or your body's frozen but your mind's, you know, ready to act, or anywhere in between. So that's what monotropic mindset and autism is like for me. The best way for people to help me is to listen, to ask me questions, to listen to what I'm saying and not assume anything or read into what I'm saying. I generally say what I mean, or a very close, you know, socially acceptable version of that. And if I say no, please don't help me because it wouldn't help me, that doesn't mean help me. It means don't do it, basically. And I suppose on that, what I would also say to people is that, you know, if that's an experience you've had with someone like me or me, don't take it personally. You know, yeah, that's it really. It's disabling, mostly because it's hard work and because people don't understand, and then you've got to go through the whole other things of explaining to people. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's something that I can definitely learn to live with now that I understand it better. I can communicate what's going on for me better because I've done this planning exercise, and hopefully as people become more aware of autism, neurotypical people will understand our perspectives a little bit better and maybe be able to approach conversations and task sharing or intrusions in a slightly different way, or even in the same way, but not be so upset when the answer or the response is not typical.